When we talk about the Lord of the Rings, most people think of Frodo, Aragorn, or Gandalf as the great heroes of the story. But what if I told you that the true heart of this journey wasn't found in a king, a wizard, or a ring-bearer, but in a simple gardener from the Shire? Yes, Samwise Gamgee, a hobbit who never sought glory, never desired power, yet without him the entire mission would have failed. And that's the truth that few recognize. While the spotlight shone on others, it was Sam who literally carried Middle-earth on his back. Now pause for a moment and think, how many times in life have you seen someone shining while another, behind the scenes, made everything happen? That loyal friend who never abandons you, the co-worker who holds everything together when everything is falling apart, the person who, quietly, ensures that everything runs smoothly. Samwise Gamgee is that kind of person, but the question is, why is his story rarely told the way it deserves to be? Why is he always remembered only as Frodo's faithful companion, when in truth he was the one who ensured the ring reached its destination? The truth is, Sam didn't just help Frodo, he was the force that kept the mission alive. He fought, faced unspeakable terrors, resisted the ring's temptation, and when all seemed lost, he was the one who carried Frodo up Mount Doom. If it weren't for Samwise Gamgee, Sauron would have triumphed. But this isn't just a story about Middle-earth, it's a lesson about real life, about those who work behind the scenes, underestimated, yet ultimately making all the difference. And it's exactly this story that we're about to explore. From his humble childhood in the Shire to the moment he sailed to the undying lands, Samwise Gamgee teaches us that true greatness isn't in power or fame, but in loyalty, sacrifice, and the ability to never give up. If you think you already know the Lord of the Rings, get ready to see it all with new eyes, because this is the true story of Middle-earth's greatest hero. Fate is sometimes woven in the small habits of childhood. Samwise Gamgee was born in 2980 of the Third Age, the son of Hamfast Gaffer Gamgee, a respected gardener of the Shire. His world revolved around the deep roots of the earth, the soft touch of damp soil, and the silent growth of plants. From a young age, Sam learned that patience and care transform seeds into trees, a lesson that would shape his journey far beyond the lush fields of the Shire. Life seemed simple, yet Samwise Gamgee's destiny was already whispering of a greater calling. It wasn't just the soil that Sam nurtured, but also his curiosity and determination. Besides tending to plants, he inherited from his father the craft of rope-making, a crucial skill for an adventurer, even if he couldn't yet imagine how useful it would become. And there was more. His mind absorbed stories like a sponge. It was Bilbo Baggins who ignited his passion for literature and ancient tales, something unusual for a simple gardener. Imagine a child in modern times, enchanted by Tolkien's pages before bedtime. Sam, in a way, was that dreamer. For many, the Shire was a safe, secluded haven from the world. But for Samwise Gamgee, it was far too small a space for his dreams. While his brothers and friends were content with routine, he looked beyond the hills, wondering what lay on the other side. Like every great hero, he began his journey without knowing that one day he would have to carry more than just gardening tools. He'd be carrying the fate of Middle-earth on his shoulders. The unlikely hero is often born from simplicity. What's even more curious is that while Frodo was seen as the story's protagonist, Sam was always there, quietly growing in the shadows. If we stop to think, most of life's big changes begin subtly, without grand announcements. Many times, we're unknowingly preparing for something greater. Maybe it's the same with you. What seems like a minor detail today might turn into the skill that transforms your destiny tomorrow. Just like Samwise Gamgee, you might be one step away from your greatest adventure. But what truly ignited Sam's desire to venture beyond the Shire? It was something few understood, a deep admiration for the elves and their stories. There was something in him that yearned for more than just the earth beneath his feet, and that's how the first thread of his grand journey began to unravel. From an early age, Samwise Gamgee held a fascination that few hobbits shared, a deep admiration for the elves. While the other hobbits of the Shire were content to ignore the wider world, Sam would daydream about the tales he heard of the elven lords and their immortal realms. It was Bilbo Baggins who introduced him to this new reality, reciting ancient poems and recounting tales of Rivendell, Lothlorien, and the untouched beauty of the elves. For a simple gardener, these stories were like windows to a vast, unknown world, where magic flowed naturally and eternity was promised. Most hobbits viewed the elves as distant, almost unreal figures, but not Sam. He wanted to see them, to hear them, maybe even to talk with one of them. It was an innocent yet powerful desire, like someone reading about great explorers and feeling deep down the call to set out. Think back to when you were a child and saw something for the first time that changed your perspective. It might have been a book, a movie, or even a conversation that opened your mind to something larger than your immediate world. For Sam, that turning point was the poetry and lore of the elves. This love for stories wasn't just a pastime, it was fuel for his courage. Who would have thought that a gardener used to planting potatoes and pruning rose bushes would be capable of facing dangers that even great warriors feared? Yet that's how great journeys begin, with a heart full of curiosity and an unwavering desire to explore the unknown. What once appeared as a childish dream became a force that would guide Sam through paths no hobbit had ever tread before. The power of stories is often underestimated, but they shape our thoughts, prepare us for challenges, and sometimes teach us to face the impossible. Interestingly, Sam never wanted to be an adventurer like Bilbo, but somehow the stories he heard gave him the courage he would need in the future. Similarly, the things we consume today, books we read, stories we hear, might be laying the groundwork for something we can't even imagine yet. And what happened when Sam finally encountered the elves for the first time? He saw them singing under the stars and felt something indescribable, a mix of enchantment and melancholy, like witnessing a magical moment you know you can never hold in your hands. But that encounter with the elves was only the beginning. Samwise Gamgee didn't yet know that his destiny was about to be intertwined with Frodo's in a way that would change the course of Middle-earth's history. After all, his curiosity would lead him to a place where he never should have been. And that would change everything. Curiosity was always a defining trait of Samwise Gamgee. He wasn't the type to accept things without questioning them, and perhaps that's why he was the first to suspect that something big was happening in the Shire. While the other hobbits lived their lives tranquilly, Sam paid attention to the details, the whispers about Bilbo, Gandalf's visits, Frodo's worried glances. And it was that restlessness that led him to eavesdrop on a conversation that would change his life forever. He hid and listened to more than he should have. The One Ring, Sauron, the need for Frodo to depart. What began as simple curiosity ended in a destiny sealed. Getting caught by Gandalf was undoubtedly one of the scariest moments of Sam's life. The wizard, with his booming voice, caught him red-handed. But what could have ended his little investigation turned into his great opportunity. Instead of punishment, a mission was bestowed. Gandalf chose Sam to be Frodo's first companion on his journey. Not because he was a warrior or a sage, but because he was loyal. And it's curious to think how small choices can define the course of an entire life. How many times do we let opportunities slip by for fear of being caught snooping around the unknown? Many would have backed down, intimidated by the magnitude of the situation, but not Samwise Gamgee. Instead of hesitating, he embraced the mission, even without fully understanding what lay ahead. That's something few do. Often we wait until we have all the answers before acting, yet the truth is that life's greatest challenges rarely come with an instruction manual. Sam's courage wasn't born out of certainty, but from the decision to press on, no matter the cost. He didn't know how he would protect Frodo, but he knew he wouldn't let him go it alone. And so, the simple gardener crossed the first threshold of his journey. The comfortable life of the Shire was left behind, along with the predictable routine he'd always known. And the most curious part, he didn't regret it. On the contrary, he felt a certain excitement. Imagine someone who always dreamed of traveling, but never had the courage, until one day, by accident or fate, they find themselves embarking on the greatest adventure of their life. That was Sam. Fear was present, but so was exhilaration. And he didn't yet know that this was only the first of many moments where his loyalty would be tested. The problem was, when leaving the Shire, Sam and Frodo weren't just setting out on a journey, they were being hunted. Shadows already moved. Behind them, and the Nazgul, servants of the Dark Lord, were already on their trail. When Samwise Gamgee left the Shire alongside Frodo and Pippin, he knew he was crossing a point of no return. For a hobbit, stepping beyond the borders of one's own home was already a huge adventure, but Sam didn't hesitate. After all, he had promised Gandalf that he would protect Frodo. And, as anyone who's ever stepped out of their comfort zone knows, that first step is always the hardest. But as soon as the journey began, Sam realized that his life would never be the same again. And strangely enough, that didn't scare him as much as he'd imagined. Dangers began early. The road, which should have been just a path between villages, turned into hostile territory. The Nazgul lurked, and every shadow seemed to hide a new enemy. Sam's protective instinct sharpened. While Frodo struggled to grasp the weight of his mission, Sam was already alert to any threat. It's like many of us. Sometimes we're not the protagonists of the story, but we become the guardians for those who need us. Being a shield for someone is a grand role, and Samwise Gamgee understood that from the very beginning. Over time, the group grew. They met Merry and later Aragorn, a mysterious man who seemed to know far more than he let on. Sam, like any good friend, was wary. Who hasn't felt that protective instinct when a stranger approaches someone dear? But the truth is, great challenges require great allies. Aragorn wasn't just any wanderer, he was a warrior, a potential leader, and Sam would need to learn to trust him. This is a life lesson. We can't always carry everything on our own, and accepting help can be the key to success. What few realize is that even during moments of rest, Sam never let his guard down. While Frodo worried about the ring and others made plans, Sam ensured that the basic needs were met. He took care of food, comfort, and the morale of the group. And that wasn't a small detail. It was what kept the journey viable. In the real world, how many great missions fail because someone forgot to take care of the small details? Nourishing both body and mind is as essential as fighting grand battles. Samwise Gamgee understood this instinctively, but the road to Rivendell was still long, and the challenges were only beginning. They were about to face one of the first real dangers of the journey, a meeting that would show that even without swords or magic, Samwise Gamgee was already a true hero. Samwise Gamgee was never a warrior, yet from the start, he proved that courage isn't always measured by the size of one's sword. When Frodo nearly drowned in the River Bruinen, it was Sam who leapt without hesitation to save him. His loyalty wasn't made up of words, but of actions. What happened there was more than just a rescue. It was a silent promise that no matter what, he would never leave Frodo behind. And that's a powerful lesson. When you decide to stand by someone, be it in friendship, business, or life, do it with the same unwavering commitment as Samwise Gamgee. The journey soon put his creativity and resourcefulness to the test. In the Heart of the Old Forest, Sam showed that his practical intelligence was as valuable as any spell. When Old Man Willow tried to swallow Merry and Pippin, he remembered that fire could be used as a weapon. Without panicking, without hesitating, he acted swiftly. Often, we think heroes are those who face grand battles, but the truth is that true heroism emerges when you make the right decision under pressure. Practical smarts can be just as important as brute strength. Interestingly, even without realizing it, Sam was already showing leadership within the group. He wasn't giving orders, but his actions inspired confidence. Who hasn't been in a situation where everything seemed to be falling apart, yet a friend stayed calm and guided everyone to a solution? Sam was that friend. And it reminds us that leadership isn't about titles or positions. It's about knowing what to do when no one else does. In times of chaos, the one who maintains clear thinking becomes indispensable. But Sam was also a practical hobbit. He understood that on a long journey, small moments of comfort were essential. He knew how to find drinking water, how to build a safe fire, and how to prepare a decent meal with limited resources. This sense of survival might seem simple, but how often do we overlook the little things that keep us healthy and focused? Whether in Middle-earth or in our own world, knowing how to manage in tough times is what separates those who merely follow from those who truly reach their destination. The journey was only beginning, and Samwise Gamgee was already proving his worth. Yet he didn't know that soon he would face an even greater decision, a decision that would not only define him as Frodo's companion, but also as a key figure in the fate of Middle-earth. When they finally arrived at Rivendell, many might have thought that Samwise Gamgee had already played his part in the journey. After all, he wasn't a warrior or a strategist, just a humble gardener from the Shire. But for Sam, there was no doubt. If Frodo was moving forward, so would he. When the Council of Elrond decided to form the Fellowship of the Ring, Sam didn't wait for an invitation. He made his presence known. It was a moment that showed that, more than any oath or political alliance, the bond between Sam and Frodo was pure, unbreakable loyalty. And loyalty like that is rare, even in the greatest of realms. Among the members of the Fellowship, Samwise Gamgee seemed at first to be the least prepared. He stood alongside legendary warriors, a powerful wizard, an elven prince, and even a king without a crown. But underestimating Sam was the mistake of many. Instead of being intimidated, he did what he always knew how to do. He took care of the others. While Aragorn planned the routes, Legolas kept watch, and Boromir honed his sword, Sam made sure Frodo was fed and rested. It might seem small, but think about your own day. How many times has a simple act of care made all the difference? True support doesn't always come with grand speeches, but with quiet actions. Besides Frodo, Sam also formed a bond with another unlikely companion, Bill, the pony. While others saw the animal merely as a means of transport, Sam saw a friend in him. He fed Bill, talked to him, and took care of every detail. And that's one of the great lessons from Samwise Gamgee, to value what others overlook. Often in life, we're surrounded by opportunities and people who seem insignificant to the world, yet they carry immense potential. And just as Sam cared for Bill until the very end, we should learn to care for what has been entrusted to us. But Rivendell and the beginning of the journey were only the calm before the storm. Soon, Sam would face trials far greater than he imagined. And the most impressive part, he wouldn't hesitate for a second. After all, he had made his decision long ago. As long as Frodo needed him, he wouldn't take a single step backward. Samwise Gamgee may have started his journey as a simple gardener, but the road quickly transformed him. The first great trial came in the mines of Moria, a dark and treacherous place where death lurked in every shadow. It was there that, for the first time, Sam wielded his sword, not just to threaten, but to kill. An orc fell beneath his blade, and in that moment, something changed. He was no longer merely a traveling companion. He was a fighter. There are moments in life when we're forced to cross boundaries we never imagined. Sam crossed his not out of a love for battle, but out of the need to protect those he loved. The fight wasn't only against visible enemies. Sam had to confront his own fears when the group was attacked by the Watcher in the water, a monstrous creature that tried to drag Frodo to his doom. Sam's instinct was immediate. Without hesitation, he rushed to help, proving that his courage wasn't dependent on shiny swords or armor. We often think that courage is the absence of fear, but Samwise Gamgee teaches us that it's quite the opposite. Courage is acting despite fear, plunging into the storm because someone on the other side needs you. Battles shape a warrior, but the true challenge is keeping one's heart intact. While Boromir succumbed to the ring's temptation, Sam remained steadfast. He didn't seek glory, he didn't desire power. He only wanted to ensure that Frodo completed his mission. This is a powerful lesson. Not every hero needs to be the strongest or the wisest. Sometimes it's enough to be the most faithful. In the real world, how often do we see brilliant individuals fall due to a lack of character, while those who simply stand firm become the true pillars? Samwise Gamgee never wanted to be a leader, but his loyalty made him a beacon for others. In Moria, Sam learned that a hobbit's strength wasn't only in his nimble legs or his ability to endure long walks. It was in his soul. Every battle, every sacrifice, every moment of doubt made him stronger. In the end, the war wasn't just against Sauron, but against despair, surrender, and the temptation to give up. And Samwise Gamgee never gave up. That was his greatest victory, but there were more trials ahead. In Lothlorien, Sam would have a vision that would change everything, a glimpse of what might happen if they failed, a shock that would make him understand the true weight of his mission. Lothlorien was a refuge, a temporary relief amid the harshness of the journey. But for Samwise Gamgee, that moment of rest brought an unsettling revelation. Before Galadriel's mirror, he saw what he'd never imagined. The Shire devastated, trees uprooted, smoke on the horizon, his friends and neighbors living under oppression. For someone who had always seen home as a sanctuary untouched by evil, it was a harsh blow. Sometimes we believe that our small worlds are shielded from the storms that ravage the rest of the world, until we realize that no one is truly safe. The vision struck Sam deeply. Until then, his mission had been simple: protect Frodo. But now he understood that destroying the ring wasn't just about defeating Sauron, it was about safeguarding everything he loved. That's a universal truth. Only when we grasp what's at stake do we find the determination to press on, even when everything seems impossible. Often, we only become truly committed to a cause when we feel in our very bones what we'd lose. If we failed, Galadriel, with her elven wisdom, said nothing to comfort him. After all, some truths cannot be softened. What she offered, however, was something invaluable, a gift. Sam received a small box of Lothlorien soil, imbued with the power of growth and renewal. It might seem like a simple gift, but it was the essence of Samwise Gamgee distilled into an object. While many received weapons or jewels, he received something that symbolized hope. In life, we often underestimate the power of small gestures, of the little resources we carry, but even the smallest seed can grow into a mighty tree. Sam's vision wasn't an inevitable prophecy, but a warning. He could prevent that grim future, but only if he continued alongside Frodo without hesitation. This is the kind of commitment that separates those who merely dream from those who get things done. And Sam, without titles or noble lineage, was more determined than any king could ever be. But the journey was far from over. Soon Sam and Frodo would find themselves in hostile lands where war was already looming. And in that landscape of battles and uncertainty, Samwise Gamgee would learn that even on the battlefield, humanity can be a relative concept. Upon entering Ithilien, Samwise Gamgee and Frodo left behind any semblance of safety. The land was at war, and the quiet of the forest was merely a guise for the chaos unfolding in the shadows. It was there that Sam, for the first time, witnessed the real impact of conflict, not just the grand armies marching, but also the individuals who fought without a choice. When they saw a fallen Haradrim warrior, Sam wondered if that man was truly evil or just another piece in Sauron's game. And that's a reflection that reaches far beyond Middle-earth. How many times do we see someone as a villain without knowing their story? It was in Ithilien that the two hobbits encountered Faramir, Boromir's brother, a man who, unlike his sibling, didn't crave glory but wisdom. Ever vigilant, Sam quickly noticed that Faramir was different. He spoke with respect, not treating the hobbits as insignificant creatures. Yet even in an atmosphere of apparent hospitality, Sam knew that any misstep could be costly. And it was there that, inadvertently, he revealed a dangerous secret that Frodo carried the One Ring. How often in our own lives do we end up saying too much without realizing it? A word spoken at the wrong moment can change everything. But Faramir, contrary to what Sam feared, did not try to seize the ring. He saw the burden that Frodo carried and decided to let them press on. Sam, who was never quick to trust strangers, learned that not all men were like Boromir. Sometimes life surprises us with allies where we least expect them. And that's a valuable lesson. We can't always predict where help will come from, but when it does, we must be ready to accept it. Faramir could have followed the path of so many others in seeking power, but he chose honor. And Sam, with his simple insight, recognized that. While they rested in Ithilien, Sam still found a brief moment for something that brought him joy: cooking. He prepared a rabbit stew for Frodo, using what he found in the forest and the spices he carried. It might seem like a minor detail, but amid war, a hot meal was a slice of normalcy in a crumbling world. How many times in difficult times do we forget to care for the small things that make us human? Samwise Gamgee never did, and perhaps that's why, even in the midst of chaos, he never lost his essence. But the journey wouldn't relent. Little did they know that danger was not only coming from Sauron's armies or the spies lurking around. They already had an enemy within their own group, one ready to strike. From the very beginning, Samwise Gamgee never trusted Gollum. He saw beyond the creature's fragile appearance and treacherous whispers. He knew that beneath that exterior lay a constant threat. Frodo, burdened by the weight of the ring, believed he could control Gollum, perhaps even redeem him. But Sam understood something that Frodo still couldn't see. Some battles can't be won with mercy. As someone who had long sensed the presence of deceit around him, Sam noticed every sidelong glance, every false smile, and his intuition was spot on. Gollum was already plotting his betrayal, and the blow would come from the least expected quarter. Gollum's plan was simple and cruel: to lead Frodo and Sam into the lair of Shelob, the monstrous spider reigning over the Valley of Shadows. And when they finally reached that dark labyrinth, Sam felt a fear like never before. But unlike many, he didn't freeze. The thing about Samwise Gamgee's courage was that it wasn't loud. It was steady, solid, unyielding. When Shelob attacked, he didn't hesitate. He fought with everything he had, wielding Sting and the light of Erendil. A hobbit versus an ancient, terrifying creature. In real life, it's much the same. Sometimes we're pitted against challenges that seem insurmountable, yet the strength we need is already inside us. When he defeated Shelob and raced to Frodo's side, Sam believed he had arrived too late. Frodo's lifeless body was proof of his worst fear. Frodo was dead. And there alone, Samwise Gamgee made the hardest decision of his life. He took the One Ring. He didn't do it out of ambition or a lust for power, but because he believed that the mission couldn't end there. How many times in life do we face the responsibility of carrying on something that wasn't our own to begin with? How many times must we shoulder a burden we never asked for? In that moment, Sam accepted the weight of the mission, not because he wanted to, but because he had to. But Frodo wasn't dead, he was merely poisoned. And when Sam discovered this, he didn't think twice. He invaded the orc's fortress to rescue him, alone without a plan, armed only with courage and loyalty. That's how true heroes act. They don't wait for the perfect moment or seek recognition. They simply do what needs to be done. And in that moment, Samwise Gamgee showed that he wasn't just a traveling companion. He was the very reason the mission still lived. Yet the hardest part was yet to come. With every step, Frodo weakened, and Sam knew that the final leg of the journey would demand something beyond physical strength. On Mount Doom, he would face the greatest test of all. The last stretch of the journey was the cruelest. Mount Doom loomed ahead, and every step felt impossible. Frodo was exhausted, both physically and mentally, the weight of the ring sapping the remnants of his strength. Samwise Gamgee, who had already done so much, saw his friend falter. And then, without a moment's hesitation, he made the decision that would forever define his story. He carried Frodo in his arms and climbed the mountain. There are moments when words fail, when promises mean nothing, only actions remain. Sam proved then that true love and true friendship aren't found in what we say, but in what we do when no one else can. The heat was suffocating, the air heavy, yet Sam pressed on. He knew that if he faltered, all would be lost. And how many times in life do we face mountains that seem insurmountable, feeling as if we're on the brink of collapse, yet we take one more step? What Samwise Gamgee did in that moment wasn't just an act of strength, it was an act of faith. He believed in Frodo even when Frodo had lost faith in himself. Sometimes being a true friend means carrying someone when they can no longer stand on their own, but fate isn't easily surrendered. Gollum reappeared, desperate to reclaim the ring. And then came the decisive moment. Frodo, instead of destroying the ring, succumbed to its power. Sam watched in horror as his friend, after everything they'd been through, gave in to temptation. What do you do when those you love make the wrong choices? How do you react when you see someone lose themselves? Once again, Sam didn't have time to hesitate. Gollum attacked, there was a struggle, and fate took the reins. The ring fell into the fire, not because Frodo wanted it, but because Gollum, in his own insatiable desire, sealed his fate. The burden was fulfilled, but the cost was high. Frodo collapsed, unable to go on, and as Sam looked around, he realized there was nowhere left to run. Mount Doom crumbled, and they were trapped at the center of chaos. It's a feeling many know. That moment when everything you fought for comes to an end, and instead of relief, all that remains is emptiness. What's left after the mission is over, what follows sacrifice. Yet, Samwise Gamgee's fate was not sealed. Hope, once again, would come from the sky, along with the promise that his journey wasn't over yet. When all seemed lost, when Samwise Gamgee had accepted that his journey might end there, the shadows were broken by the beating of wings. The great eagles appeared on the horizon, slicing through the sky like messengers of hope. Gandalf led them, and in moments, Sam and Frodo were lifted from the ashes of destruction. This moment is a powerful reminder. Even on our darkest days, when all seems hopeless, salvation can come from the most unexpected places. How many times have we believed there was no hope, only to be surprised by an unexpected solution? Awakening in Gondor, Sam was struck by reality. The burden of the ring was over, but the war was not. While kings were crowned and alliances forged, during their slumber, the world they knew was no longer the same. It's a strange feeling, coming to consciousness after a great battle, realizing that while you were fighting, the world moved on. Yet Sam sought no recognition. When Frodo was honored before Aragorn and the entire kingdom, Sam stood by his side as always, asking for nothing in return. That's how true heroes act. Their reward lies not in titles, but in duty fulfilled. The journey back to the Shire was eerily quiet. For Sam, it felt like waking from a long dream. But dreams leave marks, and he knew nothing would ever be the same. It's a common phenomenon. Those who faced great trials return home only to realize they no longer fit into the life they once knew. But unlike Frodo, who carried a weight that would never leave him, Sam held something different, a purpose. He still saw beauty in life, still dreamed of a future he could build. Upon returning to the Shire, reality hit hard. The land they loved was unrecognizable, devastated by Saruman's influence and his men. For Sam, it was as if the vision in Galadriel's mirror had come true. Yet instead of succumbing to despair, he did what he'd always known. He rolled up his sleeves. After all, a gardener's work is to restore life, not to mourn destruction. And so Samwise Gamgee prepared for his final great battle, not against monsters or dark lords, but against the ruin that had spread over his home. The fight for the Shire would be unlike anything they'd ever faced. There were no more elves or kings to lend a hand. Now it was up to the hobbits to defend their own land. And Samwise Gamgee, who had faced demons and ancient monsters, now mustered his courage for something even more important, returning the peace he so loved to his home. The return to the Shire was not the happy ending Samwise Gamgee had hoped for. He had imagined coming back to the home he'd left behind, only to find a land gripped by fear and destruction. Saruman and his men had corrupted the heart of the Shire, transforming it into a shadow of its former self. For Sam, it was a heavy blow. Everything he'd tried to protect was there, undone. But Samwise Gamgee was no longer the hobbit who had once left. He'd faced darkness before and knew that a devastated garden isn't the end. It's the beginning of something new. Resistance soon formed. Sam, alongside Frodo, Merry and Pippin, led the hobbits against the invaders. And it was then that something remarkable happened. The courage he had shown in distant battles now had to be applied at home. It was no longer a war against orcs or malevolent spirits, but against those who had destroyed his land. This teaches us an essential lesson. Sometimes the hardest challenges aren't those we face in far-off lands, but the ones waiting in our own backyards, among those who should stand by our side. When Saruman was finally defeated, Sam didn't lose himself in celebration. His gaze was already fixed on what came next. He remembered Galadriel's gift, the little box of Lothlorien soil, and knew exactly what to do. With patience and love, he began to replant the Shire, little by little. Many people expect grand solutions to monumental problems, but Samwise Gamgee teaches us that change often starts small, nearly imperceptible, yet constant. If destruction came slowly, so too would the rebuilding. But he had no doubt that the Shire would flourish once again, and flourish it did. The touch of elven soil revived the fields, and Sam, with his own hands, planted a malon, a golden tree unlike any seen before. What once symbolized destruction now became a symbol of hope. And that's the greatest lesson. No matter how devastated something may seem, there's always room for renewal. There's always something that can be saved. And for Samwise Gamgee, that was his true mission, not merely to fight evil, but to ensure that beauty and life always rise again after the storm. Yet Samwise Gamgee's journey wasn't over. He had restored his home, yes, but his own story was still being written. The next chapter would be about something he never imagined he'd have one day, a normal, happy life filled with love. After so many battles and trials, Samwise Gamgee finally had the chance to live what he'd always desired, a simple yet fulfilling life. Unlike Frodo, whose soul would never again find rest, Sam still carried within him the capacity to love, to dream, and to build. And that's how he found his true home in the arms of Rosie Cotton. She had always been there, waiting for him, as if she knew that one day Sam would return to finish what he had started. Their marriage was more than a union. It was the symbol of a new beginning, proof that despite everything, he could still choose to be happy. Sam's life transformed into something few heroes ever achieve: normalcy. He became the mayor of the Shire, not once or twice, but 7 times. His dedication to the land and its people was natural, as if every decision he made was guided by the same loyalty that once compelled him to carry Frodo on his shoulders. This teaches us something powerful. Not every legacy is built through epic battles. Some of the greatest impacts come from small, consistent actions, day after day, year after year. And his greatest achievement of all, his 13 children, Samwise Gamgee, the Hobbit who once feared his story would end with the ring's destruction, now saw his legacy grow and flourish. He passed on to his children the same love for the land, for stories, and for doing good that he had carried within him. True success isn't just about achieving something monumental, but ensuring that what we build endures beyond us. How often do we worry about accomplishing great feats, when in reality, the greatest accomplishment is leaving something valuable for those who come after? Yet even with a peaceful life, something within Sam never extinguished. He still missed Frodo, still thought about the journey they had shared. And deep down, he knew that a part of him would always belong to that old road that once took him beyond the hills of the Shire. We all carry memories that shape who we are, remembrances that, no matter how much time passes, never completely fade. And one day, when the cycle of his life was drawing to a close, Samwise Gamgee finally understood that his journey was not yet over. The call to the west came, along with the chance to reunite with what had been lost. Years passed, and the Shire prospered under Samwise Gamgee's care. Yet deep inside, something always remained restless. He had fulfilled his role, raised a family, governed as mayor, and restored the land he so loved. But there was an invisible burden he carried, the same burden that had once led Frodo to sail into the sea. Samwise, too, was a ring-bearer, albeit for a brief moment, and that connected him to a destiny he couldn't avoid. The call of the West wasn't a surprise. It was a promise that one day had to be fulfilled. After Rosie's passing, Sam felt that his mission in Middle-earth had come to an end. He departed quietly, without grand farewells, for that was the nature of his journey. Always silent, always guided by something greater than himself. He boarded the last ship bound for the undying lands, the final ring-bearer to cross the sea. How many times in our lives do we feel that same call? That moment when we realize a cycle has ended and we must move on to something new, even if it means leaving behind everything we've ever known. The crossing was not just physical, but spiritual. Samwise Gamgee, the Hobbit who once feared leaving the Shire, was now sailing toward a destiny beyond mortal comprehension. It was a fitting farewell for someone who had dedicated his life to serving and protecting. In real life, few people ever see their efforts rewarded in such a profound way. But for Sam, that was the ultimate reward. Not gold, not fame, but rest and reunion. Perhaps somewhere in those sacred lands, an old friend was waiting for him. The most beautiful thing about Samwise Gamgee's story is that he never sought greatness. He never wanted to be a hero, never craved glory, never desired kingdoms or riches. All he did was follow his heart, protect those he loved, and do what was right, even when no one expected it of him. And in the end, he proved himself to be one of the greatest heroes of all Middle-earth. This teaches us something fundamental. You don't need to wield a sword or command armies to be great. Sometimes, all it takes is loyalty, bravery, and never abandoning those who need you. And so, on that final ship to the west, the greatest of all hobbits sailed away, leaving behind a world he had helped save. Yet his legacy never vanished. His stories lived on, passed down through generations, because heroes like Samwise Gamgee never die. They live forever in the hearts of those who follow in their footsteps. And now I ask you, how many times in life have you been a Samwise Gamgee? How many times have you been behind the scenes, holding everything together so that someone else could move forward? How many times have you been the silent force behind a great achievement? The truth is, the world is full of Frodos, but it's the Sams who ensure the mission gets done. They are the ones who don't seek recognition, but do what needs to be done. Samwise Gamgee teaches us that being a hero isn't about wielding a sword or having your name sung in songs. It means being present. It means carrying on even when everyone else has lost hope. It means lifting a friend when they can't walk any further. And if there's one thing this story shows us, it's that in the end, the greatest strength doesn't come from power, but from unshakable loyalty and a heart that never quits. Now, look at your own journey. Is there someone in your life who deserves a Samwise by their side? Or better yet, are you being someone's Sam? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you get the credit. The only thing that matters is knowing that without you, the story would have been different. If this lesson resonates with you, then join me on this journey. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and let's explore more stories that will change the way you see the world. Because, as Samwise Gamgee taught us, true greatness is often found where no one expects it.